Welcome back, everyone. We have an absolutely gigantic patch coming out in a few hours' time. Um, I want to make a quick video on some of my thoughts on the upcoming content, some of the big changes. I'm not going to go through all of the changes. I'm going to have to break this down into multiple videos. I'm going to primarily talk about Inferno difficulty, the new combat mechanics, the new gems, and the new set. And then in future videos, I will talk specifically more about all the new skills and legendary items and class balance. Okay, I think the first thing and the most important thing to note is that there's actually a Chinese version of the patch notes that has more information than the ones we received in North America. The most important difference is that um, when the patch goes live tonight, if I read the Chinese notes correctly, is that all paragons, all server paragons will be set to 800. Um, so whatever server paragon you have now, it'll be set to 800, and that is a significant change. Originally, I thought that it'll be at least a few more weeks before many of us will get to Paragon 800. That will give us more time to prepare for the new mechanics, because the new mechanics and the new mechanics and new gear, a lot of it won't be unlocked until we get to the Inferno difficulty. But with the bonus XP that's coming up, and with how close we are to Paragon 800, um, I think many people are going to be able to hit Paragon 800 on the same day that the patch is released, unlocking all of this new content. And that means we have very little time to prepare for it. So first of all, to unlock Inferno difficulty, you need to hit Paragon 800, which I think we can do within a day or two. You also have to beat the Heliquary boss Fangwrath in Hell 8, which requires a combat rating of 16,666, which is pretty difficult to reach. But with the new update, I do believe that a lot of the gear that we receive will have a boost in the combat rating bonus, and I think that will make it easier for a lot of people to get to the 16,000 combat rating. But in most cases, you're likely going to need the help of some whales, at least 3 or 4 whales, to help carry you through into Inferno difficulty. Failing that, you're most likely going to have to farm yourself to Paragon 799, where you'll be hard capped and unable to progress until you unlock Inferno. So you may have to level yourself to Paragon 7999 and then farm the hell out of everything to try and get upgrades to hit that 16,000 combat rating. For a lot of players, this might be quite frustrating. The 2 additional weapon slots will give you a massive combat rating boost. Unfortunately, you are not going to get access to those 2 additional the 2 additional weapon slots until you unlock Inferno. So you're not going to be able to use that to help you beat Fangwrath, unfortunately. This is where joining a powerful clan really helps, in which you can have the stronger players in your clan carry you to Inferno. So I want to jump into this new combat mechanic for us called stances, and this is an interesting mechanic. So when you go into Inferno, you're gonna have access to 2 additional weapon slots, and this text leads me to believe that you'll be getting an additional main hand and an additional offhand. It wouldn't be like 2 additional main hand, for example, because that wouldn't make any sense. And when you can equip this additional set of weapons, all of the modifications and bonuses that is applied to a weapon will also be applied. So legendary gems, upgrades, reforge bonuses will all be granted with this. What is really interesting to me about this mechanic, though, is number 1, you can only equip 1 legendary items that affect each skill. And that makes sense, because if you have 2 different essences that changes a particular skill, the system wouldn't be able to combine them, right? You would most likely get the effect of one and not the other. I guess one part that I'm not sure about is why wouldn't you be allowed to get two essences that affect the same skill, where one essence change the skill, but the other essence simply boost the damage. Right? There's lots of essences that simply says increase the damage of X skill by 19%, etc. So it's not clear to me why those couldn't combine. And a part of me is kind of wondering, maybe the game will still allow you to combine those essences even though they affect the same skill, because one of them changes the skill and the other one simply augments the damage. So that's one of the things I'm going to test out first as soon as I have access to this. The other thing that I find really interesting though is, based on this wording here, in order to use the activated abilities of the stances, you have to activate the stance, but you can only go from offensive stance to defensive and vice versa, which means that if you're already in the offensive stance and you want to activate the offensive stance again, I don't think you can do that, at least based on the wording here. It doesn't seem like you can activate the same stance again. It seems like you're forced to go to the other stance, wait 30 seconds, and then rotate back. So I'm not sure if I'm reading it correctly, but that seems like, even based on this diagram, there's only one button. So you would click this button to switch back and forth, but there isn't an offensive one and defensive one that you can click. I'm not sure how much I like that game design mechanic. Another thing about that is, it seems like to me, the way this is designed, it encourages players to simply spam the stances for the activated abilities. I think you would simply um, you would spam these on a 30-second cooldown and activate them as quickly as you can to enjoy the benefits of the activated ability as many times as you can throughout the fight, which I don't like, to be honest. I like game designs or mechanics where a player is rewarded for making good decisions and good timing and good skill cooldown management. Whereas in this design, it feels like you're going to get more benefit by simply rotating through them as quickly and as often as you can. But I guess ultimately we don't know. We'll have to play and test to find out. And back to the sort of rotating or forced rotating stance. If you look at this comment here, offensive bonuses of equipped weapons are reduced to 60% while in defensive stance. So what this is saying is, if I'm in the offensive stance and I really want to activate the offensive stance again, I have to suffer a period of 30 seconds in the defensive stance where my offensive bonuses are reduced by 60% before I can go back to the offensive stance. That really feels quite clunky. I just can't imagine how the battle would play out and what kind of decision you would have to make in the middle of the combat to go, okay, well, I'm okay with suffering a 30-second reduction, a 60%, or I guess a 40% reduction in my magic offensive bonuses, just so that I can get that 3 seconds of an active bonus and 30 seconds of offensive bonus. It definitely forces us to make some weird decisions, and I can't wait to test this in Battlegrounds and see how that works. In terms of the effects of the stance themselves, I'm not going to go through all of these individually, but I think the clear call out here is for defensive stance. The wizard one seems particularly good. In fact, this seems just heaps better than everything else. And this restoration one for the monk seems like, on paper, the worst one by a very long shot. In terms of the offensive stance effects, they all seem to be pretty good. I can't really compare them side by side because I don't know. Depending on your build and depending on what resonance level you are and where you're in the game, I think the damage output that is granted by these different bonuses are I'm guessing fairly comparable. I guess the only call out here is command from Necromancer. 20% attack speed increase for you and your summons. Since nobody uses summons in PvP, you're going to lose basically 50% of this bonus. So only you will get the attack speed. And I'm not entirely sure if a 20% attack speed or 10% attack speed passive for Necromancer is as good as some of the other ones here. My gut is telling me that it's good enough. That 10% attack speed is incredible. But I think we really have to play and find out and see if that's true or not. There are 3 new legendary gems. I'm actually not going to spend a ton of time talking about the 1-star gem, mainly because it's the defensive gem. If we're talking about PvE content, I don't think most players would opt for defensive options. I think most people will opt for offensive options. And if we're talking about PvP, I don't really think players are looking at 1-star gems for the PvP. Even for the free-to-play players, I think it is unlikely that this is something that is high in the list of considerations anyway. I'm not going to spend time on it. The 2-star gem, though, is interesting. It's hard to talk about the 2-star gem without also talking about the set, because both of them are specifically tailored for channeling skills, which is interesting because there's really just 2 classes at the moment that can really benefit from this, that has viable channeling skill builds, which leads me to believe that maybe in the upcoming months, Blizzard will have more channeling focused updates. And also the Shadow or the Blood Knight might be another class that has a heavy emphasis on channeling skills. And I think I would be willing to bet that the Blood Knight has some channel specific skills. I haven't actually seen any of the spoilers on the Blood Knight skills yet, even though I think they've existed for a very long time. I just haven't invested the time to look at them. So some of you who are watching this video now might already know if I'm flat out wrong. So for this gem here, your channel skills will have a 10% chance to dissolve enemy armor for 6 seconds, increasing damage they take by 15%. By reading the words here, I'm assuming that the 15% damage increase is from all sources, in which case it's very powerful. Because if you're ever in a group environment, if everyone in your group does 15% extra damage to a target, that is a fairly substantial damage increase. In addition, it sounds like this is going to apply a debuff on the opponent for 6 seconds. So any essences or skills that cares about the number of debuffs on the opponent will benefit from this as well. And this dissolve effect will reduce movement speed by 16%. I think movement speed decrease in PvE is relatively unimportant, but movement speed decrease in PvP is quite good. And the fact that this happens passively without any additional effort is pretty good. This 5-star gem, I'm really not sure about. When you deal damage, you have a 30% chance to rain meteorites in an area dealing some amount of damage. 500% base damage at rank 10 for something like this that occurs every 20 seconds is pretty comparable to similar gems like, say, Hellfire Fragments. And the 30% chance to proc is not that relevant. 30% is very high, so it's only going to take you a couple of, maybe 1 or 2 seconds of attacking to proc this. So you're guaranteed to proc this every 20 seconds, pretty much. And then it has the additional effect of leaving some burning stuff on the ground that will burn enemies in the area. There's a lot of unknowns about this gem, and whether it's good or bad would depend on those unknowns. So first of all, I dislike any kind of effect that happens to an area because it gives the opponent a chance to run out of the effect. I think what matters is the spell animation and the effect finality of the spell. And by that I mean, how long does it take for the trigger of the spell to doing damage with the spell? if there's any kind of animation that gives the opponents visual cues to move away, then I would say this is actively bad, um, especially if the animation takes a long time. A lot of wizard skills have long animation times and effects that occur like half a second after. In fact, all of the wizard's CC skills are like that. A meteor doesn't hit and stun the target for another half a second after you cast it. Arcane Wind with the main hand essence that turns it into a stun has the same problem. Um, you know, Ray of Frost needs to hit the target 6 times with the Helm essence, Frozen Stare, in order for it to freeze people. So, uh, if this is the same way, if there's an animation and then a half a second later or a second later then hits the target area, then I would say that this is pretty poor. You end up in the heat of battle in PvP, you're probably gonna miss most of this damage. Um, the second part here is interesting. If the if the target has to stay in the area of effect to get that burning effect, then I would say it's pretty bad. But if this functions the same way as Lightning Nova for the wizard, with the burning chest essence, where you just have to hit them, and then that leaves a damage over time debuff on the opponent for 2 seconds, then I think this is pretty good, because this will help you trigger Banquet of Eyes 6-piece bonus, and it will also work for the 4-piece bonus. Um, and any skill that or essence that cares about the number of bleeding effects on the opponent will benefit from this. Off the top of my head, Barbarians has a Whirlwind essence that does additional damage based on how many bleeding effects they have on the target has on them, and so I think, or maybe not bleeding, but like damage over time effects. So this might count. Crusaders with Accurus Rebuke with Condemn Essence, and the Pant Essence that does additional damage based on number of debuffs, that will benefit from this as well. So there's some good synergies with this, with the Banquet of Ice set and some classes and some builds. Overall, I don't think this gem is amazing. I don't think the numbers look amazing. I don't think the effect is particularly amazing. So I my gut is telling me that this is not going to be an incredible 5-star gem. I think this is one of those that, if you happen to find a 4 or 5-star, you can build it, but I don't think you'll miss it. At least that's my gut feeling right now. So we'll have to find out and play with it and test it if we get one. So there's going to be about a month and a half where you can modify your drop tables. This is kind of interesting because for the first month or so, you can get a 50% chance to get Starfire Shard. But then the 3 weeks after that, you can just straight up pick the one you want and you're guaranteed to get it. But then it says there's only 12 to choose from, and there is 14 5-star gems. So 2 of them will not be available here. The Starfire Shard is probably one of the ones that are not available. I don't know what the other one would be. Maybe Gloomcast. So we'll see. So there's going to be 2 legendary gems that is not available in this one here. Personally, I don't see why you wouldn't just wait and save up all your legendary crests to do it in this second half here, and just pick the most expensive and rare and sought after gems like Bloodsoul Jake and Sleeping Bile, for example. I don't feel like the new gems are valuable enough for you to try and get it at a 50% chance in this first phase here. That's my personal opinion. Actually, the more I think about it, in fact, if you just pick Bloodsoaked Jade and Seeping Bile here and you have unbound gems, I'm pretty sure you can sell those at max price on the marketplace and then just buy the Starfire Shards, which I have a feeling won't be at max price, but we'll see. And finally, this is the last thing I want to talk about, which is this new set, Seeds of the Sown Gold. It's interesting. This is an entire set devoted to a single kind of a playstyle. It's the channel skill. It does feel like Blizzard is blatantly pushing channeling really hard with this, but this is a very powerful set. So the two-piece bonus is that channeling skills can get up to a maximum of 30%. I'll be very curious to see how long it takes to get to 30%, because 30% damage increase is massive, absolutely massive. Every other two-piece bonus from the other sets is 15% bonus at most. Right? Shellbass is 15% damage on primary attacks. Grace is 15% damage on continued damage as well. You can actually combine Grace with this two-piece for 45% damage, which is absolutely insane. Yeah, so and the reason why this number is so important is because these kind of damage multipliers, the way the math works in the algorithm is that they multiply and compound with other similar percentage multipliers. They don't add up, they multiply. So there's a compounding effect. And 30% is a very large number. So I'm a little worried that people who use this two-piece, what is this? Two-piece sown gold, or let's call it seeds. Two-piece seeds and two-piece grace plus, say, two-piece banquets, for example, and then you channel a fire skill that burns. That's like 60% damage up increase. I'm a little worried. I'm a little concerned about the damage output of this. It might be completely broken, but we'll see. The four-piece bonus is interesting. I would almost say that the four-piece bonus is worse than the two-piece bonus, at least based on my understanding of how damage works and on paper, because this number is just you're doing 30% of extra damage that has been done. This percentage is not being multiplied together and thus doesn't have a compounding effect with the other damage multipliers. So I feel like this will end up doing a smaller damage increase versus what this is doing. But I could be completely wrong. Maybe 30% of the final damage is actually a lot more than that. So I don't know enough of the specifics of the damage calculation to know. The six-piece bonus. This obviously doesn't increase your damage in any way, and it's only very much useful to you in, I think, in PvP scenarios. I don't think you would use this under any circumstance for PvE. But this is an incredibly powerful effect. Essentially, every 40 seconds, you have 8 seconds of knockback immunity and damage reduction by 40%, which is massive. 8 seconds for every 40 seconds, that's about 20% uptime. At first glance, a wizard casting Disintegrate into an ice crystal obviously is a very powerful way to use this skill. One of the only ways to fight ice crystal Disintegrate wizards today is to hopefully dash past the ice crystal to the back lines and then CC the wizard and stop them from casting. But while this is in effect, you're not going to be able to do that with soft CCs. Very few class uses hard CCs in Battleground. Most of the CCs you see nowadays are knockback and knocked up effects, which won't work. So I think this is a very powerful effect for the wizard. But what I actually think, though, an even bigger beneficiary for this effect is not the wizard, it's actually the barbarian. A whirlwind barbarian will now have the ability to engage into combat, and there will be very few ways to stop them. Knockback shot from the hunters, bone pillars, vacuum from crusaders. None of these effects is going to be able to stop a barbarian from whirlwinding into your back line. And I think that's an even bigger problem than the wizards with Disintegrate. I think previously the biggest problem with barbarians in PvP is that it has a really tough time getting through to the back, and because charge can be interrupted, leap can be interrupted, and obviously running straight in is bad because it will be interrupted and knocked back. This will make the barbarian very difficult to stop. Um, so I think barbarians with 6 piece seeds with a whirlwind build is going to be something that will potentially change the meta in the coming months. And that's it. I think this video is getting a little too long. I wanted to make a short video, but it ended up being quite a lengthy one. I'm going to stop there. I need some more time to really think about the new skills and legendary items and class balances before I can provide any kind of insight. So I think I'll make that video over the next few days. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more content.